Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am the company's expert. It is July 20th today. Happy July 20th. Does anybody feel like making a plot? Nah? That's a historical joke. It doesn't appeal to everybody. And you can't make jokes about history. Nothing ridiculous has ever happened in the past, so I don't know why anybody would, really. Special thanks to Paul Cho, who is the latest member of my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for that show of support, Paul. You are awesome. And membership has its privileges. You get to see all the members-only videos. What else was I going to say? It can't have been important. Oh, I know what it was. Make sure that you are also subscribed to my, where is it? Over here. Man, this is hard. My other YouTube channel, The Company's Expert 2, because I will probably be moving these live streams and starting to do them over there on the second channel and no longer here. That is something that will happen to some degree. I haven't figured out how that's going to work exactly, but make sure you are subscribed to the other channel so you can see these and participate. Yeah, so let's get into this. Welcome to How to Get Hired. This is the show where you guys get in the chat. You ask me all kinds of questions about employment, about doing job interviews, writing resumes, careers in general, networking, soft skills, all that kind of stuff. And I will do my best to see if I can help you out and answer your questions. Being between jobs for a lot of people is kind of one of the lowest parts in your life. You feel you're at your lowest at that point. There's something like 5 occasions or something like that where we feel pretty damn low. And this is one of them for a lot of people. Not necessarily for everybody, but for most people, it's normal to feel like you're at your lowest. You feel like you're about this tall. And I think that comes from 2 things. It comes from, number 1, the rejection that this process entails for most people, and also the uncertainty. Let's talk about the rejection. Both of those, by the way, are pretty artificial. Let's start with the rejection. I mean, number 1, people end up getting a job, right? So this rejection, this feeling that like, oh, I'm no good, I'm unemployable, it's all an illusion. You end up getting a job. One way or another, sooner or later, you do end up getting something. And so obviously these feelings of like, oh no, I'm unemployable, I'm no good, like that's not true. It's all artificial, but it feels pretty damn real in the moment. That's the thing. And on top of that, what was the other one? There was a rejection, and then there's the some people got to help me out in the chat. There was the rejection, and there was the uncertainty. Let's talk about that. I think if you took the financial element out of it, that's the big worry for a lot of people. The uncertainty of what you do, actually, I mean, for a lot of people, certainly for me or for other people, the uncertainty is actually a good thing. It's like, if you just did the same thing your entire life, you never strayed beyond that one thing, it'd be a pretty boring life. So the opportunity to be thrown into something else, where you get to see something else and learn new things and meet new people and all this kind of stuff, that can be quite exciting. So, also that's the kind of stuff that where learning tends to happen, learning and improvement. And new things lead to new opportunities and so on and so forth. So it actually can be a really good thing. Awesome. We have some people in the chat. Isaac says, good morning from my mother's basement. I've heard that before. I think you've been here before, Isaac. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And Bet Samji says, hi, Bill. Hi, Bet. Thank you for joining me today. Get in the chat and let me know what you're struggling with, what challenges you're facing right now, what you're wondering about, and I will do my best to see if I can help you and answer your question. That is, after all, what this is all about. So, yeah. You like that? Very professional. Yeah, right? This is the kind of stuff that you can't do when you're representing a company, because you say stuff like that, and then the next thing you know, oh, that's apparently some kind of cultural faux pas, and, you know, it's got this huge stigma behind it, and you're like, whoops. So that's why you can't do stuff like that. You have to be very guarded, you know. But the great thing about me is now I'm getting onto the internet and just letting it fly. Julien says, hello, Julien Alice. You are here again. That's awesome. Let me know what questions you might have, and I'm here to answer. Ask me anything. Ask me the meaning of life. I'll tell you the meaning of life. I'll tell you the meaning of your life. Okay? All you got to do is ask. Okay? I'm here. I could maybe do these with while wearing a top hat that I pull some kind of rodent out of, you know, like that would be the first tip off, you know. You used to have that stuff when you went to a fair, right? You used to have the palm readers and the people that stare deeply into the crystal ball, right? They kind of do this, right? And then they tell you what's going to happen to you, right? You know, as soon as you leave this tent, you will be crushed by a hippopotamus that's stampeding through, you know, something like that. They don't have those anymore. I don't see those anymore. All I see is a bunch of drunken teenagers at the fair these days. The fair being like the mall parking lot. Here we go. Nick says, how would you answer a diversity question? I would try my best not to answer a diversity question if I could possibly help it, because these are very loaded questions. They're very politically charged. And, you know, obviously, you would have to tell me what specific diversity question if you want me to give you anything more on that. Yeah, I would try my best, because it's like the kind of question you can't win. What would be a diversity question? What ethnicity are you? You know, if somebody asked you that. Where are you from? You know? I know that in some circles, there is a little bit more of that stuff now in the last 5 years. Some people think that's a fad or a trend. Other people think it's here to stay. I'm not sure. I really don't care. To be perfectly honest with you, this is one of the things why I'm glad I'm not out in the workforce anymore and I have to deal with that kind of thing. Because I know it can be very challenging for some people. And so if there is an option that they give you where you don't have to disclose certain things and that's okay, I would take that, you know. You know, it's only like this really, the last time I checked, you only really got that stuff in very large corporations that were following some kind of very high-level departmental policy by asking things and stuff like that. So, yeah. Come on, guys, get in the chat. There's 21 people here. I'm here to answer questions, so keep the questions coming. Or else you'll have to endure my rambling about top hats and mall parking lots. And I wouldn't inflict that on my enemy. Yeah. So this is a special live stream. I'm doing some more this week than I normally do. And I'll actually be doing one on the weekend, too. That's my intention. I'll have some time on the weekend. So why not? But after next week, I'm going to be dialing these back, certainly on this channel. So you will find these possibly moved over to my other YouTube channel, The Company's Expert 2. So make sure you're subscribed to that if you're not already. Okay, Reggie says, how to answer in-care assistant interview. Well, I can't answer an interview. What's the question? Basically, what you want to do in the interview is you want to communicate to them that you have everything that they're looking for, and which they, in theory, should know because you sent in your resume, and based on your resume or your job application, which includes your resume, based on that, they called you in for an interview. It doesn't make any sense if they receive an application and it shows that you don't have, mission critical stuff on your resume. If you absolutely need this, it's an absolute hard requirement and you don't have it, they will never call you in for an interview if you don't have something essential. So the fact that you were called in for an interview, that signals that on paper, you have everything that they're looking for. And even if they've written something in the job description that they say is a requirement and you don't have it and you don't have it listed anywhere on your resume, but yet they still called you in for an interview, what that signals is that that item is not actually a requirement. It might be nice to have, but it's not a hard requirement. That's what that tells you. Nick says, I think from my last interview, the question was, how do you get along with diversity within the workplace? And can you give an example of how you've dealt with it? Fun stuff. Well, okay. Whenever they ask you for an example, that's a behavioral question. Okay. So the way you prepare for those is you come prepared. You have in your head several stories that you've rehearsed and that you've vetted and you've practiced a couple times. So when they ask you for examples of certain things in a job interview, you're going to be pulling out one of those stories, okay? So the specific story will be one of those, okay? Now, I'm sure you've worked with, at some point in your life, you've worked with someone who isn't exactly like you, okay? So you would pull out one of those stories. You would tell one of these stories you prepared. You would tell that story. And that would be some kind of success story, presumably. Okay. It would be in the STAR format. That's one of the best ways to tell stories in a job interview. Okay. So STAR, if you're not familiar with that, it means situation, task, action, result. Okay. So a very short version of that would be saying, okay, 2 years ago, I was in this role at this company, and that's the situation. And task, they put together a cross-functional team where we had to promote a product. That's the task. Action, on the team, there were many different people from many different backgrounds. I had to work with them, and it required special skills because they didn't all communicate like me, and they didn't all collaborate like me. And there were some cultural differences in how you cooperate in doing work, together. So I adapted the way I work to suit them, and they appreciated that, and it worked really out really well. Result, STAR, situation, task, action, result. Result was we promoted the product really well. We sold 20% above expectations, and everyone had a great time on the team, and it worked surprisingly well. Or it worked, I wouldn't say surprisingly, but it worked really, really well. End of story, right? Something like that. Okay. So that would be an example of a story that you've prepared earlier. Okay. That could be an example of working on a team. So if they ask you, tell me a time you worked on a team and you collaborated and it worked out, you tell that story. If they ask you, tell me about a time you were given a challenge, you can pull out that same story, right? So it's a story, it's an answer to many, many different questions. If they ask you, tell me about a time you had to work within a diverse environment, okay, that you hadn't done before, you could maybe pull out that story also if it was part of it. So that's how you would deal with that. Jerry says, I love the ramble part. Oh, well, thank you very much, Jerry. That's high praise indeed. I could just give you a stream of consciousness thing, and I'm sure it would be me and you here, left alone on this stream. Julien says, I can't find executives nor general managers in my city on LinkedIn. I found like 4 or 5, but they don't accept my connecting request, even though my profile is very well put together. Okay. How big is your city? I mean, you're going to have managers. I mean, like I'm in a city of 750,000 people, and there's something like, I don't know how many, like there's at least 10,000 managers. like general managers, people that are running an operation of some kind or running a department, or technically general manager. Hopefully everybody knows that means you're responsible for profit and loss. You're responsible for the making money part of the business. And you're also responsible for the saving money and efficiency part of the business, like costs, right? Like running a factory. It's a cost, right? You're given a budget and then you have to use it wisely and get the most productivity or production out of it. So general manager means you're responsible for both. So a general manager, usually you're higher up. Either you're running a business operation of some kind, or you're running a self-contained business unit within a company. So, I mean, that could scale all the way down to, technically it could go all the way down to one-person companies, right? Because that is your role. You are a general manager if you're an owner. So, yeah. But they're there. It's just a matter of finding them. Now, if you're doing I'm not an expert on the current ins and outs of LinkedIn, but as I recall, when you sign up with a free account and you've got a free account, you don't pay for LinkedIn, and you do a people search, they will put restrictions. The biggest restriction is that, if you say you go to your hometown and you do okay, I may live to regret this, but I'm going to do this anyway. I'm going to actually pull up my own LinkedIn account. I feel a bit weird about this, but it's July 20. So let's see here. If I can get this to work. Okay, it's been a while since I did this. So if I do a search for general manager, I guess you got to set it to people, right? So people. Now you get like a sort of endless list of people. Like there's how many screens? 100 screens. So now I don't have a paid account, okay? However, as you can see here, these results, they are within 3 degrees of separation of me. So these are all second-degree connections. Okay, so that means that they are connected to someone who is connected to me, right? Now, presumably at some point, you'll get people that are third-degree connections. This is screen 7. I'm still on second-degree connections, maybe screen 100, hopefully. Here you go. Here's a third-degree connection, okay, or third plus. Now, my understanding, the way this traditionally worked is that if these people are not 3 degrees separated from your current network, okay, so the only people that will show up in a people search for you are first degree connections that you're already connected to, second degree connections that are connected to someone you know, or third degree connections, which means they're connected to someone who is connected to someone who's connected to you. So if they're outside of that, they will not show up. Okay. Now, if you get a paid account, if you decide to pay for LinkedIn and you give them like $30 a month or whatever it is, then they turn off all those restrictions, I believe, right? However, you can hack this a little bit in the sense that I believe they still offer like the free premium account, like try it for free for 1 month. So if you haven't already done that and you still have that option available where you could just get the premium account for free for a month, get it, and then you'll have unrestricted search as far as I know, for that month, certainly. And then you can do all your searches there. Just do 1 billion searches in that first month. And, and maybe blast out a bunch of connection requests or something. I'm not sure. But I think that's how it works. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time on LinkedIn in the last little bit. So, and they're constantly tweaking and changing little things. So I'm not sure if it's moved, but that's kind of my take on it. Okay, where are we here? Okay, I think I'm on Nick here. I think from my last interview, the question was, how do you get along with diversity within the workplace And can you give an example? Okay, I think I talked about that, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. I was beyond this. Yeah, I take my eyes off the feed for 1 second. The whole thing moves, and then I lose my place. So hopefully that makes sense. Julian. Jimmy says, hi, what about the question, what do you think is the main key for this role? Well, you could say that depends what type of lock you're trying to break into. Like, what's the key? What's the essential element or requirement to do this role well? That's how I would interpret what you've said there. Well, I mean, obviously that's going to vary depending on what role it is, right? I mean, if you can give me an idea of what exact role we're talking about, then I could give you a more specific answer on that. There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer to that. Bet says, Bill, recently I have had some first interviews, but I have not had a second call in any of them. Could you give me some advice to continue in the process? Thanks. Okay, here's the deal. Obviously, that depends on many variables, okay? Now, you can control some things, and you can't control others, okay? So, for example, let's say the job market's really tight right now. There's a lot of competition, and it's really tough out there. Okay, let's pretend that was the factor. You don't have control over that. What you do have control over is, first of all, your interviewing skills. So you can work on those and just make sure that that's not the issue. Okay, the way to do that is in some way, shape, or form, you do practice interviews with people, okay? Executives pay for that. Private HR companies, independent HR companies provide that service. Certainly for executives, they charge a lot of money for it. They charge like over $1,000 for that service. For regular people, you don't really need that. I mean, you just have to do it with a friend, okay? Family members, not so much. I mean, if that's all you have, that's all you have. But it would be better to do it with a friend or someone that you trust, because then they can give you a little bit more honest feedback, okay? And the way to do it, I mean, hopefully you know this, but just in case you don't, the way to do it is you say, look, like, let's do a pretend interview. You ask me some questions. You give them questions or whatever, or you tell them, go get some questions off the internet and ask me them. And we'll do this like this is a real job interview. Is that cool? And then you say to them, like, look, can you give me some like real honest feedback, brutally honest feedback? What should I improve on? And then whatever they say, you say, okay, no problem. And then you shut the hell up. You don't start talking, because people are natural. No matter who you are, your natural reaction will be to get defensive to some degree. Okay. So just do not respond. Just say thank you. Okay. Then don't say anything else, and then change the subject. Okay. So it's not worth discussing or challenging them on that. Just listen to what they have to say. And then after they've gone, then maybe, work on it or think about it or see what you can do about that. Okay. So for interviewing skills, you can do that. The other thing you have control over is what you're applying for, where you're looking. Okay. Now, if you're looking in the posted job market, that means you're responding to publicly posted job ads. Okay. Competition is very, very high for those. Okay. You have something like 80% of all the job seekers competing for those. And those make up something like 20% of the jobs that are actually out there. So you got 80% of the people competing for those 20% of the jobs. So it's very competitive. That's why you get like hundreds of applicants for a lot of these online jobs all the time, right? So, so if you succeed in getting interviews, that tends to suggest that your resume and your job application writing is good. The way it works is your resume gets you the interview, and then your interview gets you the job, right? So that tends to suggest your resume is fine, your job application writing ability is fine, but there may be an issue with your interviewing. Okay, or the competition is just too stiff. Make sure that you're also looking in the hidden job market. You're using networking, okay? I talk about that extensively. I feel like an idiot a lot of time just saying the same thing over and again, but it's true. Make sure you're doing that. Get informational interviews in addition to job interviews. Learn about informational interviews if you don't know about them already. You're not asking for a job. You're asking for information. You're meeting all kinds of powerful people that are high up in your industry where, you want to work or you have worked, and, you get them to like you. And then you're not asking them for a job. If they like you, you now have them at the end of the phone. So you could just pick up the phone and ask them a question, and they'll take your call and they'll be, hey, what's up? Right? That's really powerful. Usually that leads to a lot of good things. It leads to jobs. It leads to gig work. It leads to partnerships. It leads to all kinds of other things. So be investigating that too. Also, connect with people on LinkedIn, connect with people in the real world and face to face, and then just be broadcasting, hello, I can do this. I solve this problem. If ever you're looking for someone with my abilities, please let me know, because I'd love to work for your company. That's very powerful too. That's the most basic form of networking that anyone can do from their house or their apartment. You could do it from your computer. Okay, you can contact thousands of people that are in your industry that have the option of hiring you. They have the power to hire you. If they happen to be looking for someone that has your abilities, they could hire you right now if they wanted to. So you're sending that note, that little pitch out to them. Okay, now most of them, they're just not looking for someone with your skills right now. Like, what are the odds, right? That you happen to contact them right when they happen to be looking for someone that needs those. It's not going to be 100% success rate. It's going to be something like 5% success rate or 2%. Okay, but if you send this out to hundreds and hundreds of people, okay, that 2%, probability that, you happen to land in the lap of someone who's looking right now for someone that, can do what you can do, you will get several bites. Okay, so you have control over where you're looking and you have control over your interviewing skills. So I would look at improving both of those, and it could be either of those, or it could be both, or it could be neither. But I would look at improving those, because that's what you have control over. Where did I leave off here? Thank you, Nick. That's a very nice thing to say. Especially in the AM. That's good. A lot of people wake up cranky. The last thing you feel like doing is, praising somebody. I don't know. It's, a lot of people, you wake up in the morning, you just feel like ripping somebody's head off, and then as you eat food and you wash your face, and then you start to calm down a little. I guess it depends on the type of dreams you have too. Victor says, I got a new job last year, and listening to you definitely helped on the interview. Good. I'm glad to hear it. It's, not to sound grandiose or anything, but Victor, it's a journey. As you go through life or through your career, you get better at doing things like interviewing, right? The soft skills, interviewing skills improve. So it's about staying on that journey where you get better and better and better. This just rolls off the tongue. RYTR account says, if I had a second degree connection on LinkedIn who is the hiring manager of the position I'm applying for, would it be unprofessional to reach out to them through LinkedIn? If not, what should I say? It wouldn't be unprofessional unless what you said to them was unprofessional. The fact that you reached out to them, that alone is not unprofessional. But this is not the situation that I'd recommend LinkedIn helping you. Like, if you've already applied for the job, your application has gone to the recruiter, and you are now known in the company as an applicant for that position. That's what you are contacting the company for, okay? So if you then contacted the hiring manager, now the hiring manager is not the appropriate person to talk to, if they've posted a job publicly and said, here's how you apply for this. Okay. Usually, when they say, here's how you apply, it's not the hiring manager's email address, right? You know what I mean? So it usually goes to somebody else. It goes to a recruiter, right? Usually. And so if they've posted that, but then you're contacting the hiring manager saying, I'm applying for this job, the obvious question the hiring manager is going to have is like, well, why aren't you doing what we've said is the appropriate thing to do to apply for that job? That's going to be probably the first thing they're wondering. And it might be the first thing they say to you, right? The other thing is that if you then sort of contact the hiring manager, but don't talk about the job you've just applied for, right? You say, oh, I'm just looking for some information on this, or I'd like to know more about your company. As soon as they find out somewhere along the line that you've applied for that job, then it kind of ruins the whole thing, because it's like, okay, I see what your ulterior motive is. You're trying to ingratiate yourself because you have applied for this job. You want to be selected, right? So this isn't really the situation where reaching out on LinkedIn, is going to like get you, in my opinion, a ton of benefits. The power of using LinkedIn to do networking is you're not in this situation when you've already applied for a posted job through standard channels, but now you're trying to go around the standard channels by contacting somebody else. Does that make sense? The whole point of networking through LinkedIn, at least the way I recommend people use it, that I myself have used it to build, my consulting business and stuff, is you use it to get you can do it for many things. One is to get informational interviews. Another is to broadcast your value, like to send out your message to all these people. If they, it's kind of like this, right? If it kind of clicks with one person, they go, oh, I need that right now. It's great that you sent that to me now. Great. Most of the other people just won't respond because sorry, I'm not looking for that right now. In the same way that if somebody puts a brochure in your mailbox for a service that you don't need, like, here, come to this pizza place, or come to this vegan tofu restaurant, or here, here's a new service where we can clean your carpets. Like, do you respond to them and say, no, why are you contacting me? What's all this about cleaning carpets? I don't have any carpets. Why are you contacting me? You don't do that. You just don't respond. So most people won't respond to it. There's other things you can do on there in the world of networking too, right? But anyway, so hopefully that makes sense. I like just talking and then eventually you run out of steam and you forget what the original question was. That's a very professional way to talk to people. And I'm proud of it too. Oh, that was the last question. Okay, so I've got nothing else. So I'm just waiting for the next question or a reaction to whatever that was that I just said. You like my cup? Make sure that I can always find it. It also helps if it plays music or something. Yeah. Seattle. I've never been to Seattle. Where's maps here? So you go to maps. All right, I'll get back to this in a second. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, Victor says, is it possible that a company will like two candidates so much that they'll open a new position to accommodate both? in a scenario where the company is already growing anyway? Yes, definitely. There's another way of getting a job. I don't talk about it very much. It's a little more exotic. It's called, for want of a better word, it's called growth opportunities, that's where you find out what companies are coming to your city. Are there any big companies that are coming to your region, your town, your city, and setting up shop? Okay, they're opening a branch office or, whatever. And you can get this from, like the, Centers for Economic Development and things, or your city. If you live in a city, it'll have some kind of tourist, branch of the government, the tourism department. They will know what's coming on. The Department of Economic Development, it's a branch of the local government. They will know, because it's their job to try and get big companies to come to your city and set up shop and start employing people and giving jobs to people that are here, right? There's usually some kind of government initiative that does that. So one way of getting a job is you contact them, you find out what company it is that's like coming here. Oh, you just heard that IKEA is coming here, whatever, some industrial company or whatever. Well, they're going to be needing accountants, technicians. They're going to be needing salespeople. They're going to be needing customer service people. They're going to be needing managers. They're going to be needing production specialists. They're going to be needing supply chain people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what you do is you contact their representative and say, hey, I hear that, you might be coming to town. Just so you know, when you get here, I can be your guide. I can hook you up. I know, in the world of supply chain or in the world of customer service, I'm connected here and I know about your company. I know you guys do great work in this. If ever you're looking for someone to start that department or be in that department, give me a call, and let's figure something out. So, that's called a growth opportunity. And usually they're coming to town. They're kind of unfamiliar with the town. They usually have a local person there in some way, shape, or form, but they're going to be they need to do many things, including hiring people. So you can get in sort of right at stage 0, and there's some advantages to that too. Just simply the fact that you reached out to them and said, "Hey, I can help. I got some skills in here." That's very impressive. They'll appreciate your attitude, your passion, your awareness. And all that kind of stuff. So that's another way of getting a job. It's called growth opportunities. I did a live stream on that like 3 years ago or something. It's probably still on my channel. I don't really think I've talked about it since. But yeah, and that happens in many ways, shape, or form. I've told a story where my previous employer, like I had brought in, I don't know, some local construction company to renovate the offices or something. And we had like some guy who was like an electrician or something, and he was working in the CEO's office. I wasn't the CEO, but this guy was. I reported directly to the CEO, and I brought this guy in. And so this technician or whatever he was, electrician or whatever, he was working in the boss's office, and he did good work, and he was very charismatic, and he was a very good communicator. And immediately after he was done and that crew or whatever, like just went home or whatever, the boss came and talked to me and said, "Who was that guy? We need to hire him." Just based on the fact that like he seemed like a really good employee, very easy to work with, very knowledgeable, very dedicated. Just based on that, the boss said, like, can we hire him? Like, let's give him a job. So yes, that stuff is possible. It's totally possible, especially if they're growing. Hopefully that makes sense. Good question, Victor. Regai, is that how you say it? Regai? What are the most important skill and qualities needed to be a care assistant? A care assistant? You mean like, is this in the medical field, I'm assuming? I would not be the best person to answer that. I'm not in the medical field, if that's what you're talking about. But you should be able to that would be a great question for an informational interview. right? Just bear with me a second. The people that have seen me do this before are probably going to roll their eyes and leave, but I just picked a city at random, say Seattle, okay? Now, I don't know where you would work as a care assistant. I'm just going to type in care assistant. Let's pretend that I live in Seattle, okay? So here we got some businesses. The key care home assistants, care at home, Providence Home Services, King County. So let's pretend that I want to see if I can work here. The key, formerly home care assistants. Okay. So I'm sure this won't work because I'm not in Seattle, but if I was in Seattle, so what I could do is I could type into my LinkedIn, this particular company. Okay. Now, I don't think my connections are going to I'm not going to find anyone that I'm connected to that works in this particular place in Seattle. But if I did, they would be here. So like what I could do is I could actually say something more like care home. How about care home? I mean, that should produce a lot of results. This is a people search for home care. Okay. So we got people that are in different cities that are second degree connections to mine. So what I would do here is I'd look for maybe a specific position. Home care is an industry. I would look for, say, how about this? General manager. Home care. Let's see what that produces. General manager of Halo Home and Health Care Centers. So that's a second degree connection. General manager of My Place Home Care in Canada. I'm going to make this bigger. Okay. Now it doesn't give you their name. So you can just go and open these. Open. General manager at Alternative Home Care. Now these are in different cities. You see, they are connected to me. I mean, I'm not in medical, so it's going to be very sparse what you find within my network or people that are connected to me that are in a home care. Okay. But so I'm opening up all these, my computer is slow here, but I'm trying to open up these profiles here of all these people. And then what you would do is you would connect with them through there. Okay, so that, and then there's many, many options from that point onwards. Okay, but that's how you can connect to these people. Okay, that's how you can discover them. Now, if you know the name of the company, that really helps. If you happen to be looking up something in your own city or region, you're going to hopefully have a lot more results. Now, if you don't have a big network, you got to start building up your network. And like I said, the alternative is to just use the free premium account that LinkedIn offers you for 1 month. You can sign up for free, and then the people results, like all these search results that I'm getting here, they don't have to be, 3 degrees of separation from me, right? They can be not connected to me at all, and they will still show up. I can still discover those people. Okay, so where are we here? So I can't answer that question for you, Reggie, but you can easily get a good answer from the people who know. Like you saw how I can discover who those people are. Then what you would do is you would contact them, ask them for an informational interview. It's like, hello, I'd love to get your expert opinion. Would you be able to spare me half an hour? I'd love to ask you some questions about your industry. And then most people you won't hear anything from, but some people you will. They'll say, sure, how about Tuesday at 4 at this place? If they don't know, if they want you to suggest a place, you could suggest a Starbucks or something, or a coffee house that's nearby. And then, you go there and you say the home care is like a really growing field, and you get them talking about that. And then, when you've had to hire like a home care assistant, what are the qualities that you look for? And you're getting it right from the source, right? If this is a general manager in the field of home care, you're getting like A+ grade information here on what they care about and what they look for, right? Now you do 3 or 4 informational interviews with these people, you'll get a pretty good idea of what they're looking for, okay? Or the answers to any other questions you might have about that role or that industry. Okay, Marmaris says, hello, how can affect that I have since 2019 out of my career, and I'm trying to find a job, but unfortunately have been unsuccess. Sorry, you lost me, Marmaris. If you could rephrase that a little bit more intelligible, I'll be happy to answer it if I can. Okay, what's this? Interviews are hard to come by, and it's disheartening to remain positive. Any suggestions on how to remain positive after being ghosted as a new grad? Okay, the best way to stay positive is to get good results. So the question really should be, how can I get better results? Because if you get better results, then you'll start feeling better about the whole thing. All I can say, purely as to the sort of mental health part, is that you're not alone. Okay, usually they don't teach you anything about networking. They don't teach you anything about the real way people get jobs. They teach you how to possibly look up on the internet, where the job postings are, but they don't, and then maybe how to fill in a job application or how to write a resume. But that's absolute basic stuff. What you got to recognize is that networking is where it's at. Okay. Number one, learn that. Networking is where the jobs are. You don't have to take my word for this. Go and do your own independent research. You'll see that it's true. Secondly, networking is not what you probably think it is. It doesn't mean you have to know a million people beforehand. Networking is where you go and you proactively connect to people, okay, that are appropriate. Like, it's a very tailored kind of thing. And I was showing some stuff earlier in the live stream with this screen where, I don't know where it is here. I was using a combination of Google Maps, right? You find your location, you use the search box to look up your industry or your role or, your desired job. Let's say you're a technician. Okay. So technician, right? Let's say I lived right here in the heart of Seattle. This is not my city. Okay. So here I type in technician, a bunch of stuff comes up. Let's say I'm in IT. I type in IT. And you wait a second and then bang, you see, you get all these different potential employers. These are all companies, businesses that are in that industry. Now you type in, say, data center, or Americans spell it different from Canadians. So I guess I'd have to spell it the American way. And so on, right? And you're going to get all these different companies. And then you use LinkedIn to see inside of those companies. Okay. You go over to LinkedIn, you type in the name of the company, you do a people search. You can then find individuals. You look at the general manager or the owner or the executive, the CEO. You go high. Don't go to people down at the bottom. Go high and contact them. Now, if you send them a stupid message or something that's inappropriate or something that's unprofessional or something that's just not, it just breaks protocol, you're probably not going to get good results. Learn how to speak professionally, how to write professionally, and then basically what you want to do is you want to sort of connect with them. There's many different things you could do after that fact. You could ask them for an interview. I'd like to ask you some questions. You could just dispense with all that and say, look, I've got these skills. I can solve this problem. If ever you're looking for that, let me know because I'd love to work for you. And that's it. There are many other things you can do too. So that's the way you get jobs. That's the way you bypass a lot of stupid requirements and get around a lot of silly things that recruiters make into rules, which they're not really rules. Like if, you have to have experience in a certain industry or they won't hire you. That's some stupid artificial thing. If a hiring manager wants to hire you because they're impressed with your attitude and your enthusiasm and they've had a conversation with you, and they can tell that you know your stuff. They can bypass any stupid rules that, the recruiters work to and say, sure, we'll give you a shot. Here, come in and interview for an entry-level job, and I will be at the interview, right? So that's networking. You don't have to know a single solitary person to get a job through networking. You go out and you proactively discover and connect to the people, right? Okay, there are other things in networking too. I mean, if you're an extrovert and you like going to events, there's a whole world of where you do that stuff, right? I'm talking more from the perspective of like an introvert that's sitting at home. You're not connected to these worlds, so you're trying to break into it. That's the perspective that I talk about on my channel. I think that's a situation that more people who come here are in. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff. It's just hard to summarize it all, but these are all ideas. Like, investigate these ideas, okay? Go do your own research on them. Get on Google, start learning. I have my Get Hired course. If you want to take the plunge for that, there's a link in the description where I've put everything all in step-by-step process with templates, and I explain all the principles at play, like one after another. So this is all what's going on. This is why we do it like this. This is why we can't do it like that, because of the principle, and so on. So check that out if you want to go that route. But there's so many things. There's so many things to learn about getting a job. Being skilled in your industry is not the same thing as knowing how to get a job. The two are separate. And don't be disheartened, because there's a ton of stuff out there. It's just that it's hard to discover. A lot of organizations intentionally don't put their stuff out in public and publish it far and wide, because they will get inundated with, literally thousands of applications from people that they apply for, like, you could apply for 100 jobs in a day easily online. So people just blast out applications. It's essentially spam. They don't know what they're applying for. They don't care. They're just sending out the same application to 100 different places. They've even forgot that they applied for stuff immediately after they do it. They don't know what they applied for today. They just applied for 100 jobs. If someone calls them back and says, "Oh, you applied for this job," they're like, "Okay, if you say so. I don't remember, but sure." So that's why a lot of employers don't broadcast their stuff, because that doesn't help. Have you ever gone through 1,000 resumes or 1,000 applications? That costs a lot of money. That's a lot of man hours to do. So people would rather not do that. They'd rather just jump to, I've got like 2 people that I know that are pretty good, and I've met already, and I know they've got the chops to do it. I'd rather just choose between them. So there you go. So don't worry. There's a lot of stuff out there. You just gotta learn some of the places to look and how to look. Renee says, dropping in real quick. Oh, you probably wrote that like 10 minutes ago, so you're probably gone now. Dropping in real quick while I'm working to thank you for all your videos. Well, thank you, Renee. If you're still here, I appreciate that. Josh Bateman. That reminds me of Patrick Bateman, if anyone's seen the movie American Psycho. Not the best movie ever made, but interesting. I hate to admit this, but I'm going to admit this now publicly for whatever unknown reason. Maybe I just hate myself, but I watched that movie like when it came out in the year 2000, and then based on the movie, I went and I read the book. It was not a good book. Josh Bateman. Hi, Bill. I noticed a small typo on a company website that I'd like to apply for. Would it be a good idea to message the job poster on LinkedIn and mention it along with my intention to apply? Personally, I wouldn't. I mean, listen, different strokes for different folks, but the best way to get me to like you would not be to point out my mistakes. Like the very first thing you do, hi, you made a spelling error in that job posting that you put out. Anyway, despite that, I still applied for it. So will you hire me? It's like, you know, and what you're doing, by the way, is you're giving them a preview of what it's like to work for you. What you would be like working for them. This is how it feels. If they were to hire you and you're around all the time, this is what you're going to be like. So are you the type of person that's going to constantly point out that they made a typographical error in whatever thing they just did? Are you that type of person? Will they enjoy that? Will they enjoy having you do that to them? Now, most people would say no. No, I don't want to work with that person. I mean, yes, you're right. I did make the mistake. Whoops, my mistake. And it is good that you pointed that out to me so I can correct it. But how do I feel? I don't feel great. I don't feel emotionally. I don't like it when somebody tells me that I'm wrong and tells me that I'm no good, which is what this is a form of. And if you do that constantly to me, I don't know if I really want to work with you. I don't get warm fuzzies. So I would not open with that. Because in this situation, you want people to like you. And the best way to get people to like you is not to point out their flaws in the very first thing you say to them. I know what you're saying, Josh. Attention to detail. Listen, it is a good thing. You found an error and you allowed them to correct it. I totally agree. You are absolutely correct. And I'm sure you're a technical type person. And these are great skills. And I'm a technical person. I can relate. But this situation is about getting people to like you and warm to you and think, man, I like them. I choose them. That's what you're wanting to get the other person to feel like. So with that in mind, this type of communication is not good in that sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Aaron, is that how you say that? Aaron says, what might an HR team be fishing for by asking for current supervisor's contact information prior to the first interview when a person's resume shows no indication that they are currently employed? An HR team. Well, the HR team is probably dizzy and confused and paranoid and mistrustful. That would be my guess. Oh, and incompetent. Because you didn't say you were employed. There's no indication you're employed. If they can take a look at your resume and in 10 seconds tell that you're not currently employed, but then they still ask you for your supervisor's contact information, that leads me to believe it's a bureaucracy. They're following procedures. They're following departmental policy, regardless of, the fact that it doesn't make sense in this particular situation. So this is probably a large organization that's very formal, and you probably have some junior grade recruiters in there, entry-level people that are doing this kind of work. If you're in demand, you would skip them. You wouldn't have to deal with this kind of crap if you were highly in demand in the first place. I know that seems like an entitled attitude, but you can pick and choose. No, it's just a, and maybe you guys can relate to this. This is why I've reached out to some other YouTubers that in this space that talk about getting jobs. Most other YouTubers in this space are like former recruiters or current recruiters. And I'm open to collaborating and doing like, live streams with like a bunch of other people and stuff. And we all kind of give our take on different things. I'd love to do that stuff. I've reached out to several, and so far only one person has responded to me. And I think part of the reason is because I'm always bashing recruiters. I mean, the thing is, there are some really great recruiters out there. There really are. And I've worked with some of them, but there's also a hell of a lot of bad ones. And I think the bad ones outnumber the good ones. And it's stuff like this, what you're saying, Aaron, this is, I think a more typical experience that people have dealing with recruiters. It's bureaucratic. They don't seem to care about you. They ask you nonsensical things. They ask you inapplicable things. They ask you stupid things. and you don't feel treated with respect, and you don't feel important to them. Now, maybe I'm overreacting a little bit for like the thing you said, but to me, it's all part and parcel. It's the way recruiting is done in general. And I know this because I've taught it in university. I know the theory behind all this stuff. It's really not very sophisticated, right? You're interviewed by people that don't have a clue what you do. They don't work in the same area that you do, but yet they're making a judgment on whether you're a good employee or not. It's totally skewed towards extroverts. It's totally skewed towards certain things because you're being interviewed by people that are not in your area, So anyway, I'm just going off on a tangent here, but so what might they be fishing for? I don't know what they're fishing for. I don't think they don't know what they're fishing for. They're just incompetent. Do you think it is necessary to use a paid version of LinkedIn? Well, when you say necessary, it means what your goals are. You have to first know what your goal is to know if something is necessary to accomplish that goal. It's not going to be necessary for most people, but depending on what you're trying to do on LinkedIn, it can. I mean, what little I know of the premium, like there isn't just like two tiers. It isn't like free and premium. There's several different types of premium account. There's the salesperson's version. There's the HR manager's version. There's other things in there. And I mean, if you're a recruiter actively trying to recruit on LinkedIn, yes, it makes sense to pay for it. I had a paid LinkedIn account for like 6 months or something a few years ago, and it didn't really add a ton of value. The only real thing that as I recall, was that it removes restrictions when you're doing searches, like the one that we did earlier in this live stream, where we're on here and you type something in like general manager home care, and you're doing a people search, so it's giving you, first of all, it won't say LinkedIn member, it'll say their actual name. Somebody has chosen to turn off displaying their name for, certain types of searches in this case. So you can see through that. I don't know if that's a real advantage. I mean, if they don't want their name out there, I don't know if it's all that promising of a lead, really, if they're a little paranoid of doing it. But more people show up. Now, you can get that with the free month trial run, as I recall. So, if you're doing a ton of searches constantly and you're constantly looking for people outside of your network that have no connection to you beyond the third degree, 3 degrees of separation, then it will be necessary. But unless you're in that specific usage case, I don't think most people would need that. Hopefully that helps. Chandler says, I always think of Chandler Bing. I'm sure you've never heard that before. But from Friends, from 800 years ago when that was on TV. I just completed my interview and the question about stress came up. Good thing I watched your video and was prepared. Well, good. I'm glad it worked out. And how dare you spell my name with a lowercase b? That's a mortal insult. Where's a little button to get you banned? I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. I've never done that before. I'm just kidding. Hopefully that makes sense. AKM Tume says, it makes me want to whistle a tune. Hi, Bill. I have put your advice into practice and recently requested a LinkedIn connection from a company I'm interested in. The person agreed to connect and asked if I'm job searching, and then they set up a meeting for the next week and asked for my resume, which I've already sent. Ideas. Yeah, that sounds like a recruiter. That sounds like, okay, you're going to go in there and they're going to be like, okay, so you want a job. Let's do a job interview. That's what it seems like it's building up to. I mean, I don't know. Did you talk to an executive? Is this an executive? Do you know who this person is? I mean, that would help, because it sounds like a recruiter. It sounds like, either that, or I don't know, if a person just assumes you're looking for a job. My first question is, Why are they assuming that? Have you given something away that you're specifically looking for a job? Because if you're just doing what I was doing a second ago and you send a connection to somebody and just saying, hey, I see we're both in the same industry. I'd very much like to add you to my network. Something like that. But then they jump from that to, oh, you're looking for a job, like kind of, that type of thing would be like, okay, then you're paranoid. No. I just want to connect with you. Maybe we could do an informational interview or not, that's cool too. So my first question is, what's the story so far that's made them jump to this conclusion? Okay. And then my opinion would be based on whatever the answer to that is. Okay, because it sounds like they're gearing up for a job interview. They've assumed you're going for a job. They're wanting a resume. I mean, that's what this is. This is not an informational. The word resume does not ever pop up in an informational interview. When you go to an informational interview, you do not even have your resume on you. Okay? If you do, it's a red flag. If you're just asking questions and you're having a conversation and then, well, thank you very much for your time. Oh, that was very informative. And they go, oh, do you have your resume? And you go, oh, right here. Right? It's like, no. The only reason you'd have your resume on you is if you're job seeking. And if you're job seeking, that's probably your ulterior motive for talking to me. So I find the whole thing dishonest. Right? So resumes do not play any role in an informational interview. So if they're asking you for a resume, this isn't that. This is like a job, some kind of weird job interview. And if you don't know what the job is, it seems like you're going in a little blind. So just strange. Pasha says, question, is it okay to follow up an application that was submitted through an online system by emailing the hiring manager directly if I didn't receive any notice from HR? Is it okay? Yes, it's okay. Is it a good use of your time? No. See, I could be wrong. I'm just going on probabilities here, Pasha. But from your question, I'm making some assumptions here. The assumption is that, number one, this is your primary method of job search. You're just applying for jobs, as opposed to networking or any of the other things I've been talking about in this stream, like informational interviews or broadcasting yourself or growth opportunities or like any of the others. You're just confining your job search to this one method, which is applying for posted jobs, and you're applying for them through standard channels. If it says on the job posting here, click this button to start filling in your application, you do it. Or it says send your resume and your cover letter to this email address, you do it. Okay, so you're going through standard channels to apply for a posted job. Okay, if that's the case, the way I would recommend you do it is the following. You send in your application, excuse me, and then you don't look back. Okay, if they call you or follow up with you, great. Then you come back and deal with them some more. Until that happens, if you never hear back from them again, instead of focusing your energy on like waiting for the phone to ring really hard and like starting to kind of bother them and say like, yeah, I didn't hear back. Have you read my job application yet? So what'd you think? When will you know? Instead of doing that's a waste of time. What I would do is I'd focus that time and effort into finding better, like more and better job opportunities and then sending in applications to those. Okay. You shouldn't ever wait by the phone, follow up, if you don't hear anything. That's wasted effort. It's also bad for your mental health because the phone doesn't ring. you don't get the response, and you're like you're following up and you're following up and you're following up and you're not getting a response. They've never shown any interest. There's nothing to indicate that, that they're going to follow up. Okay. So it's just a form of psychological torture, and it's a bunch of work that doesn't result in anything. So take that effort and that time and put it into pursuing new opportunities. Okay. The biggest thing you can do is that if my assumptions are correct and you're not doing any other type of job search other than responding to posted job ads, put your time into researching some of these other ways of getting a job, because they are more promising. Most people that have jobs have got their job through some form of networking, not through answering a posted job ad. And once again, don't take my word for that. Go do your own research. You'll see that that's true. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with doing it. It's just kind of a waste of time usually, Now, I know that somebody's going to probably chime in and say, hey, I did that once and I got a job through that. Yeah, everything is going to work some of the time, but the odds are highly stacked against you that this is going to work. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Okay? Learn about networking, learn about some of the other things you can do that are much more productive. All the really good jobs are not posted. And the way you get those jobs through networking, that cuts through all kinds of the rules that prevent you from getting jobs when you go through standard channels. Things like it's an entry-level job, but they require experience, right? Catch-22 doesn't make sense. You cut through that restriction by getting a job through networking. You have one informational interview with a hiring manager. They see that you're passionate. They see that you're knowledgeable. They see that you're professional. They see that you've got some get up and go and incentive, and they like dealing with you. They easily waive the fact that you don't have any work experience. You're changing careers, and the recruiter won't hire you because you have zero experience in the job you're applying for. No experience? Sorry, you can't be qualified. You cut right through that by applying through networking, not by going through a recruiter. Okay? You have a large work gap. You've been unemployed for 2 years, and you can't really put any super watertight reason for it. You can't say like, oh, my mother was sick with cancer and I had to take care of her that entire time, so I couldn't work. I was doing 24/7 home care for a sick parent, but unfortunately they passed away, and now I'm unencumbered by that, and now I can rejoin the workforce. Like, that would be a pretty watertight excuse, but you can't say that. You've just been looking for a job and it's been nothing came along, So a lot of recruiters will say, that's a red flag, and they won't hire you, right? You cut right through that by going through networking, stuff like this. So, yeah. Anyway, I just went on another rambling trip to nowhere. AKM Tume says they set up a meeting for next week and asked for my resume, which I've already sent. Okay. That's I already kind of read that, didn't I? Yeah, that was okay. I did it in a backwards order. So anyway, there you go. Unless there are any other questions, I'm going to be signing off pretty soon. So if you have anything else for me, get in the chat right now and ask away. If I don't get anything, we'll be winding this down. I just want to remind everyone a couple of things. Number one, first of all, make sure you're subscribed to my second channel, The Company's Expert 2, because I will be moving these live streams over to that channel. I'll be doing these Q&A sessions on that other channel. Come soon. I will stop doing them here and do them there. So make sure you're subscribed to that. Then you'll have the opportunity to see those and participate. For those who are interested, I have a couple of courses, as you can see on the screen. I have no, I can't. It's hard to do this backwards. There. that's a course for learning business. If you're interested in learning business, you want to start your own company, you want to make money directly without going through an employer. There's that. Also, there's my Get Hired course. So that's this way. Get Hired course. The links to both of these are in the description. So check them out if that's something that appeals to you. My Get Hired course is like all my recommendations from beginning to end, step by step, in a logical order. I cover applying for posted jobs, applying for hidden jobs, how to write resumes, how to do your LinkedIn profile, how networking works, a couple of different methods of networking. And it starts with some more high-level stuff like branding, which for most people will be pretty straightforward. But if you're changing careers, like if let's say you've worked for a technician and you want to be a teacher, what should you say you are? Are you a technician or are you a teacher? If you're applying for a teaching job, do you say you're a teacher or do you say you're a technician? It's good, things like this, right? So questions like that. I start with sort of branding and go to resumes and then go out from there. So if any of that's interesting to you, check that out. Link in the description. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot of extra questions here. I see them popping up here, but they're not in my feed over here that I'm looking at, which is strange. I understand how that works. I'm using Streamlabs OBS, and it's always been kind of clunky, and it just doesn't seem to work ever the way you expect it to. So I can see the question on the screen there. What does it say? Adrienne Hunter? Is it a good sign that I may be invited for an interview? No. Oh, you had a question up here. Yeah, that's not showing up on my feed. Hi, Bill. I applied for an internal position within the same department and spoke to my supervisor about it. She's very supportive and stated I would be a strong candidate. Is that a good sign? As opposed to what? Telling you there's no chance in hell you're going to get it? Yeah, that's a good sign. It doesn't mean anything, but you're never going to know. Are they saying it to be polite, or are they saying it because they're being honest? You don't know. You will never know. All you know is that when you go and throw your hat in the ring, if you get it, then they were probably being honest, right? If you don't get it, then maybe they were just saying it to avoid an awkward conversation. You don't know, so you try. So go and apply for it and do your best. Is it a good sign that I may invite for an interview? Yes. As opposed to what? Not being invited? Yeah, of course it's a good sign. Does it mean anything? Does it mean you're likely to get it? No, not necessarily. But it is a good sign. Okay? So take it for what it is. This process, Adrian, a lot of the factors are outside of your control. Okay? All you have control over is yourself. Okay? The way other people react, and before that, the situation that exists, what they're looking for, who also they're considering, you have no control over that. Maybe some things that are going on behind the scenes with them and other people. You have no idea. You have no control. Just focus on the things you can control, which is you can go in there and you could do a very strong interview. Okay. You can make sure that all the people involved in the decision-making process, that includes your supervisor, and also there'll be other people other than your supervisor. There's going to be presumably, I don't know if your supervisor is the hiring manager, but there might be a separate hiring manager. There might be other people brought in to consult, maybe the hiring manager's boss or coworkers or, whatever. So you can help your odds if you have good relationships with those people. Now, in a perfect world, you would be able to initiate that stuff before this specific job interview came up, right? Because if you go and start trying to ingratiate yourself to them now, it's suspicious because you're a candidate for this role that has come up, right? So there's a limit to what you can do after this has already come up. But the goal is to just make yourself be the most likable person. It's stupid, but the way things usually work in the real world is that they give the job to the person they like the most. Not the most skilled, not the most experienced, not the most capable, but the person they like the most. Because the reason is that if you're promoted into a position, you're going to be working with certain people on a daily basis. And if they don't like you, if it just doesn't click, you have different communication styles, different opinions on a lot of things, different collaboration styles. There's going to be issues with that. They're not going to enjoy that, or it's going to create more friction, right? So the way these things usually work out is that people sort of hire the people that they like, right? So that's a huge factor here. So anything you can do to get more points in that regard will be good. If your supervisor just really annoys you or something in the next few days, just let it go. Okay. Like don't call them on it, or anything like that. Right. Just basic stuff like that. Hopefully that makes sense. AKM Tune. Yeah. See, I can see AKM Tune over here. I just can't see Adrienne over here for some reason. It's strange. Okay. I'm starting to get out of sequence here, but so AKM Tune says they set up a meeting for next week and asked for my resume, which I have already sent. Any ideas on what to focus on? Did I answer that already? I think I answered that, right? Because that was all part of that story. Yeah. Yeah, we already talked about that. And Commander something says, the commander says, the worst part starts after you get hired. You actually have to endure it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of what's the opposite of a blessing in disguise? A curse in disguise? Isn't there an expression for that? I don't know what you call that, but yeah, that's true. You want this thing and you get it, and it's like, oh, you didn't realize what you were getting into. Anyway. Okay, that seems to be all the questions. So there's 22 of you guys still here. Thank you for joining me today. You guys are awesome. I'm actually going to be back on the weekend. I'm going to do at least one of these on the weekend because I have some time this weekend. So, yeah. Okay, I will take this one last one. I got one last question here, and then that's it. Hi, I just got my new security job. How do I impress my bosses? Okay, a couple of things. First of all, do your job well, right? And then there's one pretty simple basic thing you can do if you're a new hire. And that is after, say, a week, your first week, okay? Go and talk to your boss, whoever that is. You said bosses. Usually we report to one person more than others. So whoever your most direct supervisor is, okay, go and talk to them in private, just one-on-one, at a time when, they're not in the middle of something, right? They got usually immediately after lunch on a Friday is usually a good time. If you work standard hours, Monday to Friday, day shift, just after lunch on Friday, when people are coming back to work, it's Friday, they've just had their food, they're usually in a good mood. They haven't really gotten into work just yet. They're still kind of in lunch mode. They're coming back. Just say, hey, you got a minute? And then have a private conversation. Just say, so listen, I wanted to check in and just ask, how am I doing? Is there something that I'm doing that you would prefer that I did it differently? Is there anything like that? Because I'm looking for feedback. Now they may say something. They may say, actually, it's great that you're asking that because I was meaning to talk to you. If you could do this differently, I'd appreciate it. And you're like, not a problem. Or they could say, no, everything's going smoothly. If there are any issues, I'll let you know. But, we're doing fine. You're like, okay, not a problem. Just checking in. Right. And that's it. You don't pester them. You don't make it into a big deal. But the thing is, the fact that you do that, that signals that you care about your job. It signals that you're trying to do your job well. And it signals that you care about what they think of you. So people usually appreciate that when people come to them with this kind of thing. So and not a lot of people do that. Like, it's not a thing that everybody does. So that can help. And then you do it at the end of your first week, and then maybe wait a week or two, and then do it again. Okay, that usually puts you on the right road. Your boss will probably like you. They'll feel like they can talk to you. They feel like you're a good employee, and you know what I'm saying? Like, it usually doesn't backfire as long as you get them at the right time, right? You're not like, don't come to them on, like, a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning when they're really stressed out and they're in the middle of like 50 things. You got to kind of do it at the right time and do it in private. You don't do it in public where everybody can hear your conversation, and stuff like that. Okay. So hopefully that helps. That's it. Just across the board. If you're a new hire, doing that kind of thing really helps. Okay, LVL. That was a good question. Okay, thanks everybody. You guys are awesome. I will be back on, I think, Sunday or something. And subscribe to the Company's Expert 2 in future so you continue to get these. And have a great couple of days. I wish you the best of luck. Take care.